Hare Krishna. Oh, this needs to be a little louder. Can you turn this up a little louder? Welcome to our reading Krishna book to Srila Prabhupada. As we always do, let us offer respectful obeisances to Srila Prabhupada and to each other. Namo Om Vishnumadaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharane Nirvasesha Sunyavadi Paskachade Shatarane. And to each other, Vanchakalpatubhyascha Kipasindubhyevacha Patita Nam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So, for all of you online, you can note the English subtitles at the bottom of the page and you can follow along with us. Today we start with chapter 73. Lord Krishna returns to the city of Hastinapur. I just wanted to remind all our readers that remember we're reading to Srila Prabhupada. So as you're reading, you can look up at Srila Prabhupada, express yourself in a dramatic way so Prabhupada can really enjoy the story. Lord Krishna returns to the city of Hastinapura. The kings and princes released by Lord Krishna after the death of Jarasandha were rulers of different parts of the world. Jarasandha was so powerful in military strength that he had conquered all these princes and kings, numbering 20,800. They were all incarcerated within a mountain cave, especially constructed as a fort, and for a long time they were kept in that situation. When they were released by the grace of Lord Krishna, they all looked very unhappy. Their garments were niggardly, and their faces were almost dried up for want of proper bodily care. They were very weak due to hunger, and their faces had but all lost beauty and luster. The king's long imprisonment had caused every part of their bodies to become slack and invalid.
However, because in that miserable condition they had had the opportunity to think about Lord Krishna, they immediately saw him now as the Supreme Personality of Godhead Vishnu. They saw that the color of the transcendental body of Lord Krishna resembled the hue of a newly arrived cloud in the sky. He appeared before them, nicely covered by a yellow silken garment, with four hands like Vishnu, and carrying the different symbols of the club, the conch shell, the disc, and the lotus flower. His chest was marked with a golden line, and nipples on his chest appeared like the whorls of lotus flowers. His eyes appeared to spread like the petals of a lotus, and his smiling face exhibited the symbol of eternal peace and prosperity. He wore glittering shark shaped earrings, and his helmet was bedecked with valuable jewels. The Lord's necklace of pearls and the bangles and the bracelets, nicely situated on its body, all shone with a transcendental beauty. The Kaustuba jewel hanging on his chest glittered with great luster, and the Lord wore a beautiful flower garland. After so much distress, when the kings and the princes saw Lord Krishna with his beautiful transcendental features, they looked upon him to their hearts' content, as if drinking nectar through their eyes.
Hold it closer to you, louder.
Licking his body with their tongues, smelling the aroma of his body with their noses, and embracing him with their arms, just by dint of their being in front of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. All reactions to their sinful activities were washed away. Therefore, without reservation, they surrendered themselves at the lotus feet of the Lord. It is stated in the Bhagavad-Gita that unless one is freed from all sinful reactions, one cannot fully surrender unto the lotus feet of the Lord. All the princes who saw Lord Krishna forgot all their past tribulation. With folded hands and with great devotion, they offered prayers to Lord Krishna as follows.
Dear Lord, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, Master of all demigods, you can immediately remove all your devotees' pangs because your devotees are fully surrendered unto you. O dear Lord Krishna, O eternal deity of transcendental bliss and knowledge, you are imperishable, and we offer our respectful obeisance unto your lotus feet. It is by your causeless mercy that we have been released from the imprisonment of Jarasandha. But now we pray that you release us from imprisonment within material existence. Your alleged energy, please stop our continuous cycle of birth and death. We now have sufficient experience of the miserable material life in which we are fully observed and having tested its bitterness. We have come to take shelter under your lotus feet. Therefore, please give us your protection. Dear Lord, O killer of the demon Madhu, we can now clearly see that Jarasandha was not at fault in the least. It is actually by your causeless mercy that we were bereft our kingdoms, for we were very proud of calling ourselves rulers and kings. A ruler or king who become too much puffed up with false prestige and power gets no opportunity to understand his real constitutional position and eternal life. Under the influence of your elogic energy, such a foolish so-called ruler of king be attached to my devotional service without fail. Where it is? After Buddha king considers Mirage in the temple. I give you. Ah. Under the influence of your illusory energy, such a foolish so called ruler or king becomes falsely proud of his position, just like a foolish person who considers a mirage in the desert a reservoir of water. Foolish persons think that their material possessions will give them protection, engaged in sense gratification. They falsely accept this material world as a place of eternal enjoyment. O Lord, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, we must admit that before this we were puffed up with our material opulences. It was as if we were intoxicated. Because we were all envious and wanted to conquer one another, we all engaged in fighting for supremacy, even at the cost of sacrificing the lives of many citizens. This is the disease of political power. As soon as a king becomes rich in material opulences, he wants to dominate other nations by military aggression. Similarly, mercantile men want to monopolize a certain type of business and control other mercantile groups. Impelled by false prestige and infatuated by material opulences, human society, instead of striving for Krishna consciousness, creates havoc and disrupts people peaceful living. Thus, men forget the real purpose of life to attain the favor of Lord Vishnu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The kings,
The kings continued, O Lord, we were simply engaged in the abominable task of killing citizens and alluring them to be unnecessarily killed, just to satisfy our political whims. We did not consider that your lordship is always present before us in the form of cruel death. We were so foolish that we became the cause of death for others. forgetting our own impending death. But, dear Lord, the force of the time element, which is your representative, is certainly insurmountable. The time element is so strong that no one can escape its influence. Therefore, we have received the reactions of our atrocious activities, and we are now bereft of all opulences and stand before you like street beggars. We consider our position your causeless, unalloyed mercy upon us, because now we can understand that we were falsely proud and that our material opulences could be withdrawn from us within a second by your will. By your causeless mercy only, we are now able to think of your lotus feet. This is our greatest gain. Dear Lord, everyone knows that body is a breeding ground of diseases. Now we are quite aged, and instead of being proud of our bodily strength, we are getting weaker day by day. We are no longer interested in sense gratification or the false happiness derived through the material body. By your grace, we have now come to the conclusion that hankering after such material happiness is just like searching for water in a desert mirage. We are no longer interested in the results of our pious activities, such as performing great sacrifices to be elevated to the heavenly planets. We now understand that such elevation to a higher material standard may sound very realizable, but actually there cannot be any happiness within this material world. We pray for your Lordship to favor us by instructing us how to engage in the transcendental loving service of your lotus feet, so that we may never forget our eternal relationship with your Lordship. We do not want liberation from the entanglement of material existence. By your will, we may take birth in any species of life. It doesn't matter. We simply pray that we never forget your lotus feet under any circumstances. Dear Lord, we now surrender unto your lotus feet by offering our respectful obeisances unto you, because you are the Supreme Lord, the personality of Godhead, Krishna, the Son of Vasudeva. You are the super soul in everyone's heart, and you are Lord Hari. You can take away all miserable conditions of material existence. Dear Lord, your name is Govinda, the reservoir of all pleasure, because one who engaged in satisfying your senses satisfies his own senses automatically. Dear Lord, you are ever famous, for you can put end into all miseries of your devotees. Put an end to all the miseries of your devotees. Please therefore accept us, your surrendered servants.
After hearing the prayers of the kings released from the prison of Jarasandha, Lord Krishna, who is always the protector of surrendered souls and the ocean of mercy for the devotees, replied to them as follows in his sweet transcendental voice, which was grave and full of meaning. My dear kings, he said, I bestow upon you my blessings. From this day forth, you will be attached to my devotional service without fail. I give you this benediction as you have desired. You may know from me that I am always sitting within your hearts as the Supersoul, and because you have now turned your faces toward me, I, as master of everyone, shall always give you good counsel, so that you may never forget me, and so that gradually you will come back home, back to Godhead. My dear kings, your decision to give up all conceptions of material enjoyment and turn instead toward my devotional service is factually the symptom of your good fortune. Henceforward, you will always be blessed with blissful life. I confirm that all of you have spoken about me in your prayers as factual. It is a fact that the materially opulent position of one who is not fully Krishna conscious is the cause of his downfall and and has and his becoming a victim of the illusory energy. In the past there were many rebellious kings such as Hai, Nahusta, Dina, Ravana, and Narakasura. Some of them were demigods and some of them demons. But because of their false perception of their positions, they fell from their exalted posts, and thus they no longer remained kings of their respective kingdoms and were lost in the violence of abominable conditioned life.
Every one of you must understand that anything material has its starting point, growth, maintenance, expansion, deterioration, and finally disappearance. All material bodies are subject to these six conditions, and any relative acquisition accumulated by this body are definitely subject to final destruction. Therefore, no one should be attached to perishable things. As long as one is within this material body, he should be very cautious in worldly dealings. The most perfect way of life in this material world is simply to be devoted to my transcendental loving service and to execute devoted to my honestly the prescribed duties of one's particular position. As far as you are concerned, you all belong to Kshatriya families. Therefore, you should live honestly according to the prescribed duties befitting the royal order and make your citizens happy in all respects. Keep to the standard of Kshatriya life. Do not beget children out of sense gratification, but simply take charge of the welfare of the people in general. Everyone takes birth in this material world in continuation of his previous life, and thus he is subject to the stringent laws of nature, such as birth and death, distress and happiness, profit and loss. One should not be disturbed by duality, but should always be fixed in my devotional service, and thus remain balanced in mind and satisfied in all circumstances, considering all things to be given by me. Thus, one can live a very happy and peaceful life even within this material condition. In other words, one should actually be callous to the material body and its byproducts and should be unaffected by them. One should remain fully satisfied in the interest of the spirit, soul, and engaged in the service of the super soul. One should engage his mind only in the thinking of me. One should simply become my devotee. One should simply worship me and worship. One should offer his respectful obeisances unto me alone. In this way, one can cross over the ocean of nescience very easily and at the end come back to me. In conclusion, your lives should constantly be engaged in my service.
After delivering his instruction to kings and princes, Lord Krishna immediately arranged for their comfort and asked many servants and maidservants to take care for them. Lord Krishna requested Sahadev, the son of King Jarasandha, to supply all necessities to kings and shown them all respect and honor. In pursuance of the order of Lord Krishna, Sahadev offered them all honor and presented them with ornaments, garments, garlands, and other paraphernalia. After taking their baths and dressing very nicely, the kings appeared happy and gentle. Then they were supplied nice food. Lord Krishna supplied everything for their comfort as benefiting their royal positions. Since the kings were so mercifully treated by Lord Krishna, they felt great happiness and their bright faces appeared just like the stars in the sky after the end of rainy season. all nicely dressed and ornamented, their earrings glittering. They were then seated on chariots bedecked with gold and jewels and drawn by decorated horses. After seeing that each was taken care of, Lord Krishna, in a sweet voice, asked them to return to their respective kingdoms. By his liberal behavior, unparalleled in the history of the world, Lord Krishna released all the kings who had been in the Duchess of Jarasandh, and the kings, being fully satisfied, began to chant his holy name. Think of his holy name, firm. Think of his holy form, and glorifying his transcendental pastimes as the supreme personality of Godhead. Thus engaged, they returned to their respective kingdoms. The citizens of their kingdoms were greatly pleased to see them return, and when they heard of King dealings of Lord Krishna, they were all very happy. The kings began to manage the affairs of their kingdoms in accordance with the instruction of Lord Krishna, and all those kings and their subjects passed their days very happily. This is a vivid example of Krishna conscious society. If the people of the world, taking into account their respective material qualities, divide the whole society into four orders for material progress and four orders for spiritual progress, centering these orders of Krishna and following the instruction of Krishna as stated in Bhagavad-Gita, the entire human society will undoubtedly be happy. This is the lesson we have to take from this incident.
After thus causing the annihilation of Jarasandh by Bhimasena, and after being properly honored by Sahadev, the son of Jarasandh, Lord Krishna, accompanied by Bhimasena and Arjuna, returned to the city of Hastinapur. When they reached the precincts of Hastinapur, they blew their respective conch shells, and by hearing the sound vibrations and understanding who was arriving, everyone immediately became cheerful. But the enemies of Krishna, upon hearing the conch shells, were very sorry. The citizens of Indraprasth felt their hearts become joyful simply by hearing the vibration of Krishna's conch shell, because they could understand that Jarasandh had been killed. Now, the performance of the Rajasuya sacrifice by King Yudhishthir was almost certain. Bhimasen, Arjun, and Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, arrived before King Yudhishthir and offered their respects to the king. King Yudhishthir attentively heard the narration of the killing of Jarasandh and the setting free of the kings. He also heard of the tactics adopted by Krishna to kill Jarasandh. The king was naturally affectionate toward Krishna, but after hearing the story, he became even more bound to him in love. Tears of ecstasy glided from his eyes, and he was so stunned that he was almost unable to speak. Thus ends the Bhakti Vedant purport of the 73rd chapter of Krishna. Lord Krishna returns to the city of Hastinapur. Hari Bol.
Chapter 74, The Deliverance of Sisupal. King Yudhishthir became very happy after hearing the details of the Jarasandha episode, and he spoke as follows: My dear Krishna, O eternal form of bliss and knowledge, all the exalted directors of the affairs of this material world, including Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, and King Indra, are always eager to receive and carry out orders from you. And whenever they are fortunate enough to receive such orders, they immediately take them and keep them on their heads. O Krishna, you are unlimited, and although we sometimes think of ourselves as royal kings and rulers of the world and become puffed up over our paltry positions, we are very poor in heart. Actually, we are fit to be punished by you. But the wonder is that instead of punishing us, you so kindly and mercifully accept our orders and carry them out properly. We are all very much surprised that your lordship can play the part of an ordinary human being, but we can understand that you are performing these activities just like a dramatic artist. Your real position is always exalted, exactly like that of the sun, which always remains at the same temperature during both the time of its rising and the time of its setting. Although we feel the difference in temperature between the rising and the setting sun, the temperature of the sun never changes. You are always transcendently equipoised, neither pleased nor disturbed by any condition of material affairs. You are the supreme Brahman, the personality of Godhead, and for you there are no relativities. My dear Madhava, you are never defeated by anyone. Material distinctions, this is me, this is you, this is mine, this is yours, or are all conspicuous by dint of their absence in you. Such distinctions are visible in the lives of everyone, even the animals, but pure devotees are freed from these false distinctions. Since these distinctions are absent in your devotees, they cannot be possibly be present in you.
After satisfying Krishna in this way, King Yudhisthira arranged to perform the Rajasuya sacrifice. He invited all the qualified brahmanas and sages to take part and appointed them to different positions as priests in charge of the sacrificial arena. He invited the most expert brahmanas and sages, whose names are as follows: Krishna Dwaipayana, Vyasadeva, Bhardaraj, Sumantu, Gautam, Asita, Vishista, Chayavana, Kanva, Maitreya, Kavasa, Trita, Vishvamrita, Vamadev, uh, Varnadev, Sumati, Jamini, Kratu, Paila, Parasara, Garga, Vaishampayana, Artava, Kashyapa, Daumya, Parshuram, Sukracharya, Asuri, Vitihotra, Madhuchanda, Madhuchanda, Virasena, and Akrita Randa. Jai Prabhupada. Besides all these brahmanas and sages, he invited such respectable old men as Dronacharya, Bhishma, the grandfather of the Kurus, Kripacharya, and Dhritarashtra. He also invited all the sons of Dhritarashtra, headed by Duryodhan, and also the great devotee Vidura. Kings from different parts of the world, along with their ministers and secretaries, were also invited to see the great sacrifice performed by King Yudhisthira and the citizens, comprising learned brahmanas, chivalrous kshatriyas, well-to-do vaishyas, and faithful sudras, all visited the ceremony.
The Brahmanas, priests, and sages in charge of the sacrificial ceremony constructed the sacrificial arena as usual with a plow of gold, and they initiated King Yudhishthira as the performer of the great sacrifice. In accordance with the Vedic rituals, long years earlier, when Varuna had performed a similar sacrifice, all the sacrificial utensils had been made of gold. Similarly, in the Rajasya sacrifice of King Yudhishthira, all the utensils required for the sacrifice were golden. Present by invitation of King Yudhishthira to participate in the great sacrifice were all the exalted demigods, including Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, and Indra, the King of Heaven, accompanied by their associates, as well as the predominating deities of the higher planetary systems, including Gandharva Loka, Siddha Loka, Jana Loka, Tapaloka, Nagaloka, Yakshaloka, and Rakshasloka, Pakshiloka, and Charanaloka, as well as famous kings and their queens. All the respectable sages, kings, and demigods who assembled there agreed unanimously that King Yudhishthira was quite competent to take the responsibility of performing the Rajaswa sacrifice. No one was in disagreement on this fact. Everyone thoroughly knew the position of King Yudhishthira because he was a great devotee of Lord Krishna. No accomplishment was extraordinary for him. The learned Brahmanas and priests saw to it that the sacrifice by Maharaj Yudhishthir was performed in exactly the same way as it had been in bygone ages by the demigod Varuna. According to the Vedic systems, whenever there is an arrangement for sacrifice, the members participating are offered the juice of the soma plant, which is a kind of life giving beverage. On the day for extracting the soma juice, King Yudhishthira very respectfully received the special priest who had been engaged to detect any mistakes in the formalities of the sacrificial procedure. The idea is that the Vedic mantras must be enunciated perfectly and chanted with the proper accent. If the priests who are engaged in this business commit any mistake, the checker or the referee priest immediately correct the procedure, and thus the ritualistic performance are perfectly executed. Unless perfectly executed, a sacrifice cannot yield the desired result. In this age of Kali, there is no such learned brahmanas or priests available. Therefore, all such sacrifices are forbidden. The only sacrifice recommended in the Shastras is the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram Hare. Another important procedure is that the most exalted personality in the assembly of such a sacrificial ceremony is first offered worship. After all arrangements were made for Yudhishthir's sacrifice, the next consideration was who should be worshipped first in the ceremony. This particular ceremony is called Agra Puja. Agra means first and Puja means worship. This Agra Puja is similar to the election of president in the sacrificial assembly. All the members were very exalted. Some proposed to elect one person as the perfect candidate for accepting Agra Puja and others proposed some else.
When the matter remained undecided, Sahadev began to speak in favor of Lord Krishna. He said, Lord Krishna, the best amongst the members of the Yadu dynasty and the protector of his devotees, is the most exalted personality in this assembly. Therefore, I think that he should, without any objection, be offered the honor of being worshipped first. Although demigods such as Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, Indra, and many other exalted personalities are present in this assembly, no one can be equal to or greater than Krishna in terms of time, space, riches, strength, reputation, wisdom, renunciation, or any other consideration. Anything considered an opulence is fully present in Krishna. As an individual soul, he is the basic principle of the growth of his material body. Krishna is the super soul of this cosmic manifestation. All Vedic ritualistic ceremonies, such as the performance of sacrifices, the offering of oblations into the fire, the chanting of the Vedic hymns, and the practice of mystic yoga, are meant for realizing Krishna. Whether one follows the path of fruitive activities or the path of philosophical speculation, the ultimate destination is Krishna. All bona fide methods of self realization are meant for understanding Krishna. Ladies and gentlemen, it is superfluous to speak about Krishna because every one of you exalted personalities knows the Supreme Brahman, Lord Krishna, for whom there are no material differences between body and soul, between energy and the energetic, or between one part of the body and another. Since everyone is a part and parcel of Krishna, there is no qualitative difference between Krishna and all living entities. Everything is an emanation of Krishna's energies, material and spiritual. Krishna's energies are like the heat and light of fire. There is no difference between the qualities of heat and light and the fire itself.
Also, Krishna can do anything he likes with any part of his body. We can execute a particular action with the help of a particular part of our body, but he can do anything and everything with any part of his body. And because his transcendental body is full of knowledge and bliss in eternity, he does not undergo the six kind of material changes: birth, existence, growth, production, dwindling, and vanishing. Unforced by any external energy, he is the supreme cause of the creation, maintenance, and dissolution of everything that be. By the grace of Krishna only, everyone is engaged in the practice of religion, the development of economic conditions, the satisfaction of the senses, and ultimately the achievement of liberation from material bondage. These four principles of progressive life can be executed by the mercy of Krishna only. He should therefore be offered the first worship in this great sacrifice, and no one should disagree. Just as by watering the root of a tree, one automatically waters the branches, twigs, leaves, and flowers, or as by supplying food to the stomach, one automatically nourishes all parts of the body, so by offering the first worship to Krishna, we shall satisfy everyone present in this meeting, including the great demigods. If anyone is charitably disposed, it will be very good for him to give charity only to Krishna, who is the super soul of everyone, regardless of his particular body or individual personality. Krishna is present as the super soul in every living being, and if we can satisfy him, then every living being will automatically be satisfied.
Sahadev was fortunate to know of the glories of Krishna, and after describing them in brief, he stopped speaking. After this speech, all the members present in that great sacrificial assembly applauded, confirming his words continuously by saying, "Everything you have said is completely perfect. Everything you have said is completely perfect." King Yudhisthira, after hearing the confirmation by all present, especially by the Brahmanas and learned sages, worshipped Lord Krishna according to the regulative principles of the Vedic injunctions. First of all, King Yudhisthira, along with his brothers, wives, children, other relatives, and ministers, washed the lotus feet of Lord Krishna and sprinkled the water on their heads. After this, he offered Lord Krishna various kinds of yellow silken garments and presented heaps of jewelry and ornaments before him for his use.
King Yudhishthira felt such ecstasy by honoring Krishna, his only lovable object, that tears glided down from his eyes. And although he wanted to see Lord Krishna, he could not see him very well. When Lord Krishna was thus worshipped by King Yudhishthira, all the members present in the assembly stood up with folded hands and began to chant Jai, Jai, Namaha, Namaha. All joined together to offer their respectful obeisances to Krishna, and there were showers of flowers from the sky. In that meeting, King Shishupal was also present. He was an avowed enemy of Krishna for many reasons, especially because of Krishna's having stolen Rukmini from his intended marriage ceremony. Therefore, he could not tolerate such honoring of Krishna and glorification of his qualities. Instead of being happy to hear the glories of Lord Krishna, he became very angry. When everyone offered respect to Krishna by standing up, Shishupala remained in his seat. But as he became angrier at Krishna's being honored, he stood up suddenly, raised his hand, and spoke very strongly and fearlessly against Lord Krishna in such a way that Lord Krishna could hear him distinctly.
Ladies and gentlemen, I can appreciate now the statement of the Vedas that after all time is the predominating factor. In spite of all endeavors to the contrary, the time element executes its own plan without opposition. For example, one may try its best to live, but when the time for death comes, no one can take it. I see here that although many stalwart personalities are present in this assembly, the influence of time is so strong that they have been misled by a statement of boy who was foolishly spoken about Krishna. Many learned sages and elder persons are present, but still they have accepted the statement of a foolish boy. This means that by the influence of time, even the intelligence of such honored persons as those present in this meeting can be misdirected. I fully agree with the respectable persons present here that they are competent to select the personality who can be worshipped first. But I cannot agree with the statement of a boy like Sahadev, who was spoken so highly about Krishna and has recommended that Krishna is far fit to accept the first worship in this sacrifice. I can see that in this meeting there are many personalities who have undergone great austerities, who are highly learned, and who have performed many penances. By their knowledge and direction, they can deliver many persons who are suffering from the pangs of material existence. There are great rishis here whose knowledge has no bounds, as well as many self realized persons and Brahmanas also. And therefore, I think that any one of them could have been selected for the first worship because they are worshipable even by the great demigods, kings, and emperors. I cannot understand how you have selected this coward boy Krishna and have left aside all these great personalities. I think Krishna to be no better than a crow. How can he be fit to accept the worst worship in this great sacrifice?
We cannot ascertain which caste this Krishna belongs to or what his actual occupational duty is. Actually, Krishna does not belong to any caste, nor does he have to perform any occupational duty. It is stated in the Vedas that the Supreme Lord has nothing to do as his prescribed duty. Whatever has to be done on his behalf is executed by his different energies. Shishupal continued, Krishna does not belong to a high family. He is so independent that no one knows his principles of religious life. Indeed, it appears that he is outside the jurisdiction of all religious principles. He always acts independently, not caring for the Vedic injunctions and regulative principles. Therefore, he is devoid of all good qualities. Shishupal indirectly praised Krishna by saying that he is not within the jurisdiction of Vedic injunctions. This is true because he is the supreme personality of Godhead, that he has no good qualities. Gunaihi hinaha means that Krishna has no material qualities, and because he is the supreme personality of Godhead, he acts independently, not caring for conventions in social or religious principles.
Sisupal continued, under these circumstances, how can he be fit to accept the first worship in the sacrifice? Krishna is so foolish that he has left Mathura, which is inhabited by highly elevated persons following the Vedic culture, and has taken shelter in the ocean, where there is not even talk of the Vedas. Instead of living openly, he has constructed a fort within the water and is living in a place where there is no discussion of Vedic knowledge. And whenever he comes out of the fort, he simply harasses the citizens like a dacoit, thief, or rogue.
Whoops, I lost my place. Shishupal went crazy because of Krishna's being elected the supreme first worship person in that meeting, and he spoke so irresponsibly that it appeared he had lost all his good fortune. Being overcast with misfortune, Shishupal continued to insult Krishna, and Lord Krishna patiently heard him without protest. Just as a lion does not care when a flock of jackals howl, Lord Krishna remained silent and unprovoked. Krishna did not reply to even a single accusation made by Shishupal, but all the members present in the meeting, except for a few who agreed with Shishupal, were very much agitated because it is the duty of any respectable person not to tolerate blasphemy against God or his devotee. Some of them who thought that they could not properly take action against Shishupal left the assembly in protest, covering their ears with their hands in order not to hear further accusations. Thus they left the meeting, condemning the action of Shishupal. It is the Vedic injunction that whenever there is blasphemy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one must immediately leave. If he does not do so, he becomes bereft of his pious activities and is degraded to a lower condition of life.
All the kings present belonging to the Kuru dynasty, Matsya dynasty, Kaikaya dynasty, and Shanja dynasty were very angry and immediately took up their swords and shields to kill Shishupal, who was so foolish that he was not even slightly agitated. Although all the kings present were ready to kill him, Shishupal didn't care to think of the pros and cons of the foolish talking. And instead of stopping when he saw that all the kings were ready to kill him, he stood to fight with them and took up his sword and shield. When Lord Krishna saw that they were going to fight in the arena of the auspicious Rajasva Yajna, he personally pacified them. Out of his causeless mercy, he himself decided to kill Shishupal. When Shishupal was abusing the kings who were about to attack him, Lord Krishna took up his dish as sharp as the blade of a razor and immediately separated Shishupal's head from his body. When Shishupal was thus killed, a great roar and howl went up from the crowd. Taking advantage of that disturbance, the few kings who were supporters of Shishupal's quickly left the assembly out of fear for their lives. Then the fortunate Shishupal's spirit soul immediately merged into the body of Lord Krishna in the presence of all, exactly as a burning meteor falls to the surface of the globe. The merging of Shishupal's souls into the transcendental body of Krishna reminds us of the story of Jaya and Vijaya, who fell to the material world from the Vaikuntha planets upon being cursed by the four Kumaras. For their return to the Vaikuntha world, it was arranged that both Jai and Vijay for 3 consecutive births would act as deadly enemies of Lord, and that at the end of these lives they would return to the Vaikuntha world and serve the Lord as his associates.
Although Sisupal acted as the enemy of Krishna, he was not for a single moment out of Krishna consciousness. He was always absorbed in thought of Krishna, and thus he first got the salvation of Sayuya Mukti, merging into the existence of the Supreme, and was finally reinstated in his original position of personal service. The Bhagavad Gita corroborated the fact that one who is absorbed in the thought of the Supreme Lord at the time of death immediately enters the kingdom of God after quitting his material body. After the salvation of Sisupal, King Yudhishthir rewarded all the members present in the sacrificial assembly. He generously remunerated the priest and lord sages for their engagement in the execution of sacrifice. And after performing all this routine work, he took his bath. This bath at the end of the sacrifice is also technical. It is called the Avabhrita bath.
Lord Krishna thus enabled the performance of the Rajasuya Yagna arranged by King Yudhishthir to be successfully completed, and being requested by his cousins and relatives, he remained in Hastinapur for a few months more. Although King Yudhishthir and his brothers were unwilling to have Lord Krishna leave Hastinapur, Krishna arranged to take permission from the king to return to Dwaraka, and thus he returned home along with his queens and ministers. The story of the fall of Jay and Vijay from the Vaikunt planets to the material world is described in the seventh canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. The killing of Shishupal has a direct link with that narration of Jaya and Vijaya. But the most important instruction we get from this incident is that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, being absolute, can give salvation to everyone, whether one acts as his enemy or as his friend. It is therefore a misconception that Lord acts with someone in relationship of friend and with someone else in the relationship of enemy. His being an enemy or friend is also on the absolute platform. There is no material distinction.
After King Yudhishthir took his bath at the conclusion of the sacrifice and stood in the midst of all the learned sages and brahmanas, he seemed exactly like the king of heaven and thus looked very beautiful. King Yudhishthir generously rewarded all the demigods who participated in the yajna, and being greatly satisfied, all of them left, praising the king's activities and glorifying Lord Krishna. When Sukdev Goswami narrated this incident of Krishna's killing Shishupal and described the successful execution of the Rajasuya Yagya by Maharaj Yudhishthir, he also pointed out that after the successful termination of the Yagya, only one person was unhappy. He was Duryodhan. Duryodhan by nature was very envious because of his sinful life, and he appeared in the dynasty of Kurus like a chronic disease personified to destroy the whole family.
Shukadeva Goswami assured Maharaj Parikshit that the pastimes of Lord Krishna, the killing of Sishupal and Jarasandha, and the releasing of the imprisoned kings are all transcendental vibrations, and that anyone who hears these narrations from authorized persons will immediately be freed from all the reactions of the sinful activities of his life. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 74th chapter of Krishna, the deliverance of Sishupal. Haribo. Just by hearing, we're freed. Why? Chapter 75. Why Duryodhan felt insulted at the end of the Rajasuya sacrifice. King Yudhishthira was known as a Jata Shatu, or a person who had no enemy. Therefore, when all the men, demigods, kings, sages, and saints saw the successful termination of the Rajasuya Yajna performed by King Yudhishthira, they were very happy. That Duryodhan alone was unhappy was astonishing to Maharaj Parikshit, and therefore he requested Shukadeva Goswami to explain this.
Shukadev Goswami said, "My dear King Parikshit, your grandfather King Yudhishthir was a great soul. His congenial disposition attracted everyone to be his friend, and therefore he was known as Ajatashatru, one who never created an enemy. He engaged all the members of the Kuru dynasty in taking charge of different departments for the management of Rajasya sacrifice. For example, Bhimasena was put in charge of the kitchen department, Duryodhan in charge of the treasury departure. Okay. Duryodhan in charge of the treasury department, Sahadev in charge of the reception department, Nakula in charge of the supply department, and Arjuna in charge of looking after the comforts of the elderly persons. The most astonishing feature was that Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, took charge of washing the feet of all the incoming guests. The queen, the goddess of fortune, Draupadi, was in charge of administrating the distribution of food. And because Karna was famous for giving charity, he was put in charge of the charity department. In this way, Satyaki, Vikarna, Hardik, Hardikya, Vidura, Santardhana, and the Bhurishwara, the son of Bahilika, were all engaged in different departments for managing the affairs of the Rajasya sacrifice. They were all so bound in loving affection for King Yudhishthira that they simply wanted to please him.
After Sisupal died by the mercy of Lord Krishna and merged into the spiritual existence, and after the end of Rajasviya Yajna, when all the friends, guests, and well wishers have been fully honored and rewarded, King Yudhishthir went to bath in the Ganges. The city of Hastinapur stands today on the bank of Yamuna. On the statement of Srimad Bhagavatam that King Yudhishthir went to bath in the Ganges indicates therefore, that during the time of the Pandavas, the river Yamuna was also known as the Ganges. While the king was taking the Abhibhrita bath, different musical instruments vibrated, such as mridangas, kansels, panavas, drums, kettle drums, and bugles, and the ankle bells of dancing girls jingled. Many groups of professional singers sang as venas, flutes, gongs, and cymbals were played. All the set tumultuous sound vibrated in the sky. The princely guests from many kingdoms like Srinjai, Kamboja, Kuru, Kekaya, and Kosal were present with their different flags and gorgeously decorated elephants, chariots, horses, and soldiers. All of them passed in a procession with King Yudhishthir in the forefront. The executive members who had performed the sacrifice, the priests, religious ministers, and brahmanas all loudly chanted the Vedic hymns. The demigods and the inhabitants of Pitraloka and Gandharvaloka, as well as many sages, showered flowers from the sky. The men and women of Hastinapur or Indraprasth, their bodies smeared with saints and floral oils, were nicely dressed in colorful garments and decorated with garlands, jewels, and ornaments. Enjoying the ceremony, they threw on one another liquid substances like water, oil, milk, butter, and yogurt. Some even smeared these on each other's bodies. In this way, they enjoyed the occasion. The professional prostitutes jubilantly smeared these liquid substances on the bodies of the men, and the men reciprocated in the same way. All the liquid substance had been mixed with turmeric and saffron, and their color was lustrous yellow.
In order to observe the great ceremony, many wives of the demigods had come in different airplanes, and they were visible in the sky. Similarly, the queens of the royal family, gorgeously decorated and surrounded by bodyguards, arrived on different palanquins. During this time, Lord Krishna, the material cousin of the Pandavas, and his special friend Arjun were both throwing the liquid substances on the bodies of the queens. The queens became bashful, but at the same time, their beautiful smiling brightened their faces. Because of the liquids thrown on their bodies, the saris covering them became completely wet. The different parts of their beautiful bodies, particularly their breasts and their waist, became partially visible because of the wet cloth. The queens brought buckets of the same liquid substances and with syringes sprinkled them on the bodies of their brothers in law. As they engaged in such jubilant activities, their hair fell loose and the flowers decorating their bodies began to fall. When Lord Krishna, Arjun, and the queens were thus engaged in these jubilant activities, persons who were not clean in heart were agitated by lustful desires. In other words, such behavior between pure male and females is enjoyable, but it makes persons who are materially contaminated become lustful.
King Yudhishthir, in a gorgeous chariot yoked to excellent horses, and was present there along with his queens, including Draupadi, and their features were so beautiful that it appeared as if the great Rajsuya sacrifice were standing there in person, along with the different functions of the sacrifice. Following the Rajsuya sacrifice, there was the Vedic ritualistic duty known as Patni Samyaja. This sacrifice, which one performs along with one's wife, was also duly conducted by the priest of King Yudhishthir. As Queen Draupadi and King Yudhishthir were taking their Abrita bath, the citizens of Hastinapur, as well as the demigods, began to beat on drums and blow trumpets out of feeling of happiness, and there was a shower of flowers from the sky. When the king and the queen finished their bath in the Ganges, all the other citizens, consisting of all the varnas or castes, the Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaisyas, and Shudras, took their baths in the Ganges. Bathing in the Ganges is recommended in the Vedic literature because by such bathing one is freed from all sinful reactions. This is still current in India, especially at particularly auspicious moments. At such times, millions of people bathe in the Ganges.
Oops. So, my dear devotees, that concludes our 1 hour of reading Krishna book to Srila Prabhupada here in Sri Vrindavan Dham. As we always do, let us offer our respectful obeisances to Srila Prabhupada and to each other. Nama Om Vishnuvadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminichi Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharane Nirvisesha Sunyavari Paskachadi Shatarane, and to each other, Panchakalpadurubhyascha kripa sindhu bhyevacha. Patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Just wanted to note that this Wednesday is Makara Sankranti and also Ekadashi. Very auspicious day to hear and read Srila Prabhupada's books and hear and chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Srila Prabhupada, Jai Krishna Book, Shri Gauda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna.